Hello, welcome to Lesson 4 for Fundamentals of Drug Information, Internet Sites. The objectives of this lesson are to describe the information available when using the following websites: the FDA, the CDC, Daily Med, National Library of Medicines, which includes AIDS Info, Clinical Trials, LactMed, Liver Talks, Medline Plus, Pillbox Beta, Drug Information Portal, GoodRx, and Farm Guide. Objective number 2 is to describe the contents of the product labeling or the package insert and know the difference between the product label and the package insert and the applicability of information contained in such. The third objective is to describe and state advantages and limitations of information obtained from pharmaceutical manufacturers. Other objectives include to identify and be able to critically evaluate health-related internet sites, to state the history and purpose of Health on Net Foundation, to locate information effectively and efficiently from websites, and to understand the use of the About button for those websites, and to identify the most appropriate websites for a specific drug information request. Just some general information about resources on the internet. We know that you have a URL, which is basically the address of the web page. And the web addresses in the United States can end in .edu, meaning .education, .gov, meaning government agency, .com, com standing for commercial organization, .net, which are network sites, .org, which are other private organizations, and .int, which means international website. Outside of the United States, you will see a 2-letter country code. For example, you may see a country code of .uk, meaning United Kingdom, or .au, meaning Australia. When using search engines on these websites, read the instructions provided with each search engine in regard to their operators, delimiters, and rules to help you search efficiently. So a browser is different than the internet sites. A browser is like your Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. And all the browsers work a little bit differently, but they all work to show you websites that you are interested in. When evaluating websites, you need to look at them and decide who runs the website and can you trust them. You need to decide what does the site say? Do its claims seem to be too good to be true? When was the information posted or reviewed? Is the information up to date? Where did the information come from? Is it based on scientific research? And why? Why does the site exist? Is it selling something? Websites can be posted by anybody, so it is your job to help evaluate these websites, especially when you have patients come up and asking you about information they may have found on the web. You need to make sure that the information stated is appropriate and based on sound scientific literature. So another way you can evaluate websites is to determine the website's credibility, content, disclosure, timeliness, feedback, design, external reviews, and overall impressions. So regarding the website's credibility, again, who is responsible for this site? Is there an author listed? Can you tell if the author is a reliable source? What are the author's credentials? Is the information published by a reputable entity? Under the content area, does this site provide accurate and thorough information? Are there references or links referring you to more information? If links are present, do they direct you to another reputable source? Is the information presented balanced rather than one-sided? Is there advertising on the site? If so, does this impact the information presented? Is there a disclaimer present? And if so, is it clear? Disclosure. Is the mission or purpose of the site clearly stated? Who supports the site financially? Does the site collect information from users? Under timeliness, is the information original and current? Are the references up to date? Under feedback, is there a way to email concerns or questions? Under design, is the site easy to navigate? Do some of the links take too long to load? Does the site contain a search engine? Under external reviews, is the site popular? Google the website. Is the information from other websites positive? Is the company legitimate? You can find this out by visiting the Better Business Bureau. And overall impressions. Is this a reliable health information website? Why or why not? You should always begin learning about a website by searching for the About button. And most of the times, this button is going to be located at the top of the web page, but I often see it located at the very bottom of the web page in very small print. Underneath the About button, you will find more information about that website. The source of information on that website, how often the website is reviewed, if there is a person that can be contacted about questions people may have when they look at the information on that website. So this is an example of the website RxList, rxlist.com. And if you notice, the About button is located near the bottom. So if you look at the very bottom of the screen on the gray, in the middle you see on the far left, you see About RxList. And this will provide more information about the website and the company who is posting the information. So when I push the About button for RxList, I have a description. RxList is an online medical resource dedicated to offering detailed and current pharmaceutical information on brand and generic drugs. It was founded in 1995 by pharmacists, and it is an Internet Drug Index resource. It was acquired by WebMD in 2004. So again, I got this information by clicking on the About button, which was located at the bottom of the home screen for RxList. So whenever you check out a new website, I strongly urge you to check out where the information is from. And you can get this by clicking on the About button located on the home page of that website. Health on Net Code is a foundation. It's a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1995. It is accredited to the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. And for 15 years, the HON, H-O-N, Health on Net Code, has focused on the essential question of the provision of health information to the public. Information that respects ethical standards. To cope with this unprecedented volume of healthcare information on the net, the HON Code of Conduct offers stakeholders consensus of standards to protect citizens from misleading health information. HON, the Health on Net Code, is funded by the State of Geneva and several European projects, the French National Health Authority. And you can find a little icon of the HON Code on websites that meet the standards set forth by the Health on Net Foundation. So again, the Health on Net Foundation offers many tips on evaluating internet sites. And it also provides a rating system for health-related websites. If the website is found to be in compliance with the HON Code, the site receives a certificate. The certificate only states that the website developers are in compliance with the basic ethical standards, with regards to presentation of information so the readers know that the source and the purpose of the data they are reading. For the one I have up on the screen right now is the RX list, and you can see at the bottom, again in the home page near the bottom, is the Health on Net certificate. So one of the websites I would like to review with you is the FDA.gov. And the mission of the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, is to protect, promote, and enhance the health of American people. The FDA has 4 main areas of oversight: entrusting that foods are safe, wholesome, and sanitary; human and veterinary drugs, biologic products, and medical devices are safe and effective; cosmetics are safe; and electronic products that emit radiation are safe. One of the most useful parts of this website is access to approval documents, including current package inserts. On the FDA homepage, if you click on the Drug tabs, which is located near the top, you will see halfway down a box. And in that box, you'll see a link called Resources for You. And these are resources for consumers, health professionals, and the industry. So when I click on the Resources for You, I will get up information about a drug. And you can see where they have consumer-friendly information, patient information, side effects, and safety information. And I just want to highlight the parts of this I generally tend to go to is what's called Drugs at FDA. It's in the middle of this page. But you can see also there's a lot of other resources on the FDA site. There are medication guides, which is information for patients on how to safely use their drugs. And there's Medline Plus, which we'll go over. It's a database that is directed to the consumers. It's run by the National Library of Medicine. Disposal of unused medications. You can also see that under patient information, there's labeling information. And again, I do use the Drugs at FDA. I like their package inserts. I also like to read the approval documents for new drugs. There's Daily Med, which we'll take a look at, which is another website that has a library of package inserts. And you can also look at drug trials, and there's a lot of more information on the FDA site, but I would just highlight a few pieces that I find myself routinely using in practice. So as I mentioned, I like to use the drug information, Drugs at FDA. And you can see it has a link on the home page for the Drug tab of the FDA, and it's to the right under what states as Spotlight. So when I enter Drugs at FDA, I will get an ABC listing, and I can enter up characters, or I can spell a generic drug name or even a brand name, or I can browse by drug name. But for an example, I just put in the brand name Maxalt, and I hit the search button. So what comes up is Maxalt, and you can see the active ingredient is rizatriptan. You can see the strength there as 5 milligram or 10 milligrams. You can see the dosage form. It comes in a tablet. It's oral. The legend, which means it's a prescription drug. You can see the generic code, which is the orange book code, which is AB rated. And then down below, where it says original approvals or tentative approvals. And this is, I find myself going to this section when I'm preparing P&T documents. So you can see there that this was considered a new molecular entity, and it was approved, and that was back in 1998. You can see also that there's a link to the label that was approved then, to the letter that was approved, and also to the review that was submitted by the FDA reviewers and also by the drug company. So just to show you, I was going to click on the review, and I will show you what you can access. So when you click on the review, and again, this is the review that was presented before the FDA for drug approval, you get a lot of information here. You get clinical reviews, and this clinical review is so large, they had to divide it into 5 sections. You have a chemistry review, pharmacology review, carcinogenicity, statistical, and some more clinical pharmacology reviews. Some of these reviews are by the drug company itself, and some are by the FDA reviewers. So again, I often find myself coming here, especially for the new drugs that are being released, to take a look and see exactly what was discussed at the FDA approval hearings. So another useful section of the FDA website, under again the drugs tab, are the drug recalls and alerts. And as you can see under this section are drug recalls, the MedWatch, the FDA Safety Information and Adverse Reporting System, and then recalls, market withdrawals, and safety alerts. The MedWatch program is a voluntary system in which healthcare professionals or patients submit to the FDA any type of perceived adverse event. And I just wanted to show you what kind of information the FDA will review, and then what happens once the FDA reviews that information and decides to issue an alert. So here you can see that MedWatch, the FDA Safety Information and Adverse Event Reporting System, once they review information and issue a report, they will put it on their website. So under what's new, I'm just looking at the second one there. It says diabetes infusion sets by Medtronic. There's a recall. So you can go to the FDA site to find out current safety information, current recalls, or any type of special alerts that the FDA issues. Another website I would like to review with you is the CDC. This is a governmental website. It's a Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The CDC is primarily concerned with the prevention of disease as well as regulatory activities, which include monitoring laboratory standards, evaluating occupational health hazards, and maintaining surveillance programs on preventable conditions. The CDC also compiles statistics on diseases, occurrences, and death from all causes in select cities. It makes recommendations on immunizations, provides valuable information on drug therapy for public health problems, and certain biologicals and drugs may only be obtained through the CDC. The CDC also lists travel information and provides up-to-date information on vaccinations. At the bottom of the home page are options for the healthcare professional. And I'd like to take you through a bit of the travel information and the travel vaccines that are recommended as an example. So here's an example of how I would use the CDC website for travel vaccine information. Sophie wants to know which vaccines are required for travel to Vietnam during February for 5 weeks. She will be going to Saigon. Sophie's 23 years old and up to date on all routine vaccinations and is otherwise healthy. So whenever I receive a question about travel vaccinations, I know to automatically go to the CDC website under travel vaccinations. So Traveler's Health is on the home page for the CDC. And all you do is choose Traveler's Health with the drop-down arrow and then click on Destinations. Of course, at this stage, you should already have in your mind the questions that you need to answer. So if you don't know what are the usual vaccinations for a 23-year-old, you will need to find that information. You can go outside of the Traveler's Health information and find that on the CDC website under immunizations. If you know what are the usual vaccinations, you can continue to find out if there's any special vaccinations that are needed when traveling to Vietnam. So again, the second part of your questions are what vaccinations are required to travel to Saigon for someone who's going to be in the city for over 1 month. So I go to travelers information and I choose destinations, and then I choose Vietnam. So once I choose Vietnam, I will get a website up that shows me some vaccinations that are required for travel to Vietnam. So I can see there for routine vaccinations and then hepatitis A and B, and hopefully by this time you know that hepatitis A and B are part of the usual DOT vaccinations, so we don't need to include those. For example, if I asked on the test and part of your exam is a searching part, I would not want you to include usual vaccinations. The third one, though, however, is not a usual vaccination. It's Japanese encephalitis vaccine. So you can read there that it is recommended for the following groups: for long-term travelers, and they define that trips lasting more than a month, to endemic areas during Japanese encephalitis virus transmission season. So that fits our scenario. We know that Sophie is going for 5 weeks. So we now need to determine whether or not Saigon is in an endemic area, and if it's Japanese encephalitis virus transmission season in February. And to do so, I will just click on the yellow book. You can see the link to the far right. It says Japanese encephalitis. I will click on that link and get more information. So when I click on the yellow book, Japanese encephalitis link, I get the yellow book and chapter 3, which talks all about Japanese encephalitis. And I can just page down to see the information that would be helpful in answering this question. All of the chapters in the yellow book have these maps. I recommend not using these maps. So let me say that again. Do not use these maps. You need to look in the words, in the text, to determine whether or not that area of the country is endemic. So we know that Saigon is in Vietnam, so that's where we want to concentrate. And when we look at Vietnam, we see the entire place says it's known risk areas. So that is not very helpful. We need to look further and go into the text itself. There will be a table after the map that will provide you more information. So once we go into the table, we look at Vietnam and we can see that the affected areas, it does say endemic countrywide, seasonal and epidemics in the northern provinces. We see that transmission season is year-round with a peak season in May through October, especially in the north. And we also see that the highest rates of diseases are in the northern provinces around Hanoi and northwestern and northeastern provinces bordering China. So in order for us to fully understand and answer this question, we need to know where Saigon is within Vietnam. And you can find this information by looking at the map in the yellow book. But I also recommend at this point just Google it and find out where Saigon is within Vietnam. And you'll notice it is near the southern part of the country. So for Japanese encephalitis vaccine, I would say, because Sophie is traveling to Vietnam and the whole country is considered to be endemic, and I would probably recommend that she go ahead and get this vaccine. So again, back at our homepage on the travel vaccine site for Vietnam, we saw some other vaccines that may be recommended. And these are malaria prophylaxis, rabies, typhoid, and yellow fever. So you would do the same. You would click on the link to the far right to find out more information. And as you can see, anti-malarials are recommended to malaria risk areas. So again, you need to determine whether or not Saigon is in a malarial risk area. You go through the same process. You click on the malaria link to the yellow book to find the text. Again, don't look at the maps. find the text, and this is where it's going to be important that you know the geography and you know where Saigon is within Vietnam itself. Rabies is recommended for those travelers that will be outside coming and that will be coming into contact with dogs, bats, and other animals. Generally, rabies is not needed unless you have somebody who's going to be working and coming into the rural areas and coming in contact with animals. Typhoid may be recommended. Again, you do the same thing. It says it's recommended for most travelers, especially those who are staying with friends or relatives, visiting smaller city villages or rural areas where exposure might occur through food or water, or those persons who are prone to adventurous eating. So again, if you want more information, you click the link to the yellow book to find out more specifics of this recommendation. Yellow fever is required if traveling from a country with a risk of yellow fever transmission and greater than 1 year. So that yellow fever is not needed in the case of Sophie. So again, I would have to find more information out about malaria and also typhoid to make a reasonable recommendation. So in addition to the traveler's information and the traveler's vaccine information, I use the CDC for yearly flu information and also for any other infectious disease information I may be interested in. If you look under diseases and conditions on the home page, you will see select diseases come up, and one of them right now being in the fall is influenza. And I can click on that influenza link to find out more information about the influenza season. If it's been reported yet, I can click to find out what the strains are in this year's vaccine. So the CDC has a lot of good information on current infectious diseases that are ongoing here in the United States and even worldwide. Lastly, I want to show you about the CDC is if you go to the bottom of the home page, you'll see the button that says about the CDC. And under the science link, I will often go to the morbidity and mortality weekly report. This is a newsletter publication that is put out by the CDC, and it has very good up-to-date information. So if you go to the MMWR, you will see that there's information on the homepage about Zika, but there's also information about the hurricane. And then I can also search this publication to find out any topics that I am interested in, such as I mentioned before, finding out statistics about influenza. So one thing that is published in the MMWR are recommendations and reports, and we can look at the current recommendations. And if you notice, the August 25th, 2017 recommendation came out about the prevention and control of seasonal influenza and with vaccines. So this is recommendations of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, ACIP, Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices here in the United States for the current flu season. So I know whenever I'm looking for updated recommendations for vaccine use, I can always find them here in the MMWR, which is a publication of the CDC. So to illustrate that, let's say you're at work and at your practice site, a physician asks you to research the new flu vaccine strains. And where are you going to go to find that information? The best source and the original source is actually the MMWR, and they will publish these recommendations generally at the August timeframe of every year. So again, we saw those recommendations, and I am going to just click on that hyperlink that says under the August 25th, 2017 date to get the current recommendations of the influenza vaccine. And this is a great document. It gives the recommendations. It also has some really nice charts and figures at the end. It provides a huge table on all influenza vaccines that are available here in the States and their components, whether or not there's thimerosal in them. And it's just an excellent document if you needed to find out more specifics on influenza and influenza vaccines. So this is the recommendation for this fall, and it tells us that the trivalent vaccine contains a Michigan 45 2015 H1N1, and then A Hong Kong, and B Brisbane. And you can also see that the quadrivalent influenza contains an additional strain of an influenza B vaccine. So again, the MMWR is an excellent source for current recommendations on those topics that are handled by the CDC. So DailyMed is a website I use to locate package inserts. The package insert is also known as a product label, and it's developed during the formal process of review and approved by the FDA. There are specific regulations concerning what must be included in the drug label regarding its content and how it works, as well as proper administration and handling, side effects, and proven effectiveness and safety. The content and the presentation of the label is originally drafted and submitted by the manufacturer, and they're reviewed and approved by the FDA. In the U.S., the complete label of prescription medication is made up of several documents that are approved by the FDA. Some are professionally oriented, and then some are intended for patients and consumers. The first and most comprehensive of these documents is always the professional prescribing information, and this is often referred to as the package insert. And DailyMed is a website run by the National Library of Medicine that is a library of package inserts. So I have to caution you that when you use DailyMed, make sure you have the correct package insert. There are many manufacturers of these medications, especially if you're looking at a generic drug. Make sure you have the proper package insert for the company that makes that drug. So I just typed in Zithromax, and I'm going to look up the package insert for this suspension. I want to know that suspension, what makes it pink? Is it a dye? So if you notice, once I type in Zithromax and do a search, I will get up package inserts for Zithromax. I know that the brand name product is made by Pfizer, and those are the top three I get up. The first two, however, are injectables, and then the third one, you can clearly see that it's a tablet. But if you read right below that hyperlink, it does say azithromycin dihydrate powder 4. So I would assume this would be the oral suspension. And once I click on that hyperlink, I am indeed correct. So just be aware that you don't sometimes see the full title of the product. So you have to do some deducing. So be careful when you look through here that, again, you choose the correct package insert for the product that you are researching. So once I click on the suspension information, you'll notice to the right there it says, gives it a date. So this package label was just updated in April 13, 2017. And I get areas or sub areas of this insert where I can go to that particular part of the insert to look at that information. So I'd like to back up and talk a little bit more about this package insert. So again, the prescribing information is intended for and written for healthcare professionals. And then the package insert may include other materials in addition to the PI. Although this is often referred to as package insert and prescribing information, they're referred to interchangeably. However, newer medications have a two-part PI. The first part is titled Highlights of Prescribing Information, and it's generally 1 page long. The second part is the full package insert, and the package insert for older products covers the same types of information as the newer products, but some of the sections are arranged and labeled differently. So again, PI does stand for package insert and not product information. The formal name is package insert, and it is a legal document that is required by the FDA when drugs are being approved. So there are certain components of this package insert, and the number one is the indication. So again, this is what the drug is approved to be used for. Secondly, contraindications, and these of course are those things in situation in which the drug must absolutely not be administered. Generally what we see here are severe allergies, anaphylaxis. We have warnings. This is information about the medicine's important side effects and what to do is provided in the warnings section. Clinically significant adverse events are described here in the warnings, along with other potential safety hazards. Box warnings. This term refers to a specifically formatted warning that is the strongest level of safety warning that may be required by the FDA for a medication. Specifically, box warnings give a brief explanation of any contraindication or serious warnings that may be associated with death or serious injury, and they're cross-referenced to a more detailed information covered in the warnings and contraindications sections. Precautions are those situations in which the medication should be used carefully. And then there's information for the patients and patient counseling points. Some of your product information, they also contain a medication guide or other patient labeling parts. And I didn't go through all of the parts. As you can see though on the slide, there are several other parts to the product insert, such as special populations, drug interactions, overdose, description, which I will talk about in just a moment. That is a part of the package insert that I do use the most. The description is where I can find all the inert ingredients contained in that product. There's also clinical pharmacology, non-clinical toxicology, clinical studies, references. So I really don't use the PI for anything but locating inert ingredients. I know that I can find all this other information in my drug databases. So I would encourage you also to use the drug databases. Pick your favorite Lexicomp or Facts and Comparisons, Macromedics, stick to that one and get used to it. And then know that for inert ingredients, the best source is the package insert. So here is an example. You're working at the clinic and a patient, Joe, is prescribed Flomax 0.4 milligrams once daily for BPH. Joe is just diagnosed with BPH and is otherwise healthy. He's allergic to FD&C, which is the Food and Drug and Cosmetic blue dyes. So using your drug information skills, determine if Flomax contains this dye. So again, the best place to look for inert ingredients is the package insert. The drug databases are hit or miss with regards to inert ingredients. I like to go to the source, which would be that package insert. So I know I can find package inserts in Daily Med. So I will go into Daily Med and I will search Flomax. And then I want to make sure that I choose the Flomax capsules that are the brand name by Boehringer Ingelheim. And you can see that that is the first one listed. And I will click on that hyperlink. So as I mentioned, description is number 11, and that's generally the part of the package insert I am looking for. So I will look under the description to see if Flomax contains an FD&C dye. And I can see here under each Flomax capsule, near the end, underneath the structure, the inert ingredients. Tamsulosin 0.4 milligrams contains the following inactive ingredients. You can see a microcrystalline cellulose, methacrylic acid, copolymer dispersion, triacetin, calcium stearate, talc, gelatin, iron oxide, and there you go. FD&C blue number 2, titanium dioxide, propylene glycol, and shellac. So this capsule does indeed contain FD&C blue number 2. So I would want to provide an alternative for the patient. I wouldn't just say, yes, this contains FD&C blue number 2. I would need to look up what other medications can be used for newly diagnosed patient with BPH. And again, I know you know these sources, and you can look this up in UpToDate or Dynamed. And what you'll find out is there's a couple of other options we have, and then you would need to double check each of those options to see if they contain an FD&C blue dye. So again, try to anticipate those questions a caller may ask, and they're certainly going to ask you for an alternative. Be thinking ahead. Go ahead and research that information, and then you would know what is the best product for this patient who has BPH, newly diagnosed, and is allergic to FD&C blue dyes. So another database I really enjoy looking at, and you do find myself going to, is the National Library of Medicine, NLM. And this is on the campus of the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. It's a center for innovation since 1836, and it's the world's largest biomedical library. NLM maintains and makes available vast print collection and produces electronic information resources on a wide variety of topics that are searched by billions of times each year and by millions of persons. NLM is the organization that's responsible for Medline. And I know you all know what Medline is, and their interface is PubMed, and we all need to use that in our when we're doing research. So I'm going to show you a couple of other databases that I use that are run also by the NLM. And you can see here on this slide that there are some listed to the left, and the first one there is PubMed or Medline. Below that is Mesh. Again, you really need to use your Mesh terms when you're doing a search. This ensures your requester and yourself that you have searched all the viable clinical trials in PubMed when you use those Mesh terms. You'll see clinicaltrials.gov, Medline Plus, which is a consumer-based database for your patients. It provides medical information for patients. ToxNet for toxicologic information. And then there's also several others that I use that aren't linked exactly on this homepage. But let's take a look at some other databases that NLM has. So again, as I mentioned before, I do use PubMed quite a bit. And again, if you want to know more about NLM, you go to the bottom of their homepage and you see that little button about NLM. And you can click on any of the other links also that interest you. One of those links with health information. And as you can see, if I click on the health information link, I will get up databases about health information. And what I want to draw your attention to right now is the general health information for patients and their families and friends, which is produced by NLM, which is Medline Plus. Medline Plus is a website that brings information about diseases and conditions and wellness issues to the public. Again, it is produced for patients and their families, so it is written in lay language. And as you can see here by this slide, it has over 900 health topics, medical encyclopedia, drugs and supplement information, latest health and news. So I'd like to show you a little bit about Medline Plus. Medline Plus, again, is a National Library of Medicine's database, and it's for consumer health information. The site offers authoritative, up-to-date health information without advertisements, and it's available anytime, anywhere for free. And there is also a Spanish language version. Health topics are the core of Medline Plus. Health topic pages link to health information from the National Institute of Health and other authoritative sources, and also include a Medline PubMed search, current news, items about the topic, and links. There is a medical encyclopedia. There is also information on drugs, supplements, and herbals. Prescriptions and over-the-counter medicines plus herbs and supplements. There is a link to current health news. There is a dictionary for spelling, definitions, and pronunciations of medical terms. It is available in multiple languages. There are several directories. It links directly to Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus page. Medline Plus is not an exhaustive list of every health website that is available, but it's a selective list of authoritative health information sources from the National Institutes of Health and other government and professional organizations. It is an excellent site to use for patients. So if your patient had information or wanted more information, I would definitely direct them to Medline Plus. So here it is an example of Maxalt. It's rizatriptan. So as you can see, it gives you a pronunciation, and I've been pronouncing it wrong. It's rizatriptan. And then it gives you basic information. Why is this medication prescribed? How should I use this medication? What other uses are there for this medication? Any special precautions, special dietary instructions for this medication? What common side effects? What should I know about the storage of this medication? In case of an emergency, when should I contact my physician or healthcare provider? And what other information I should know. So again, this is Medline Plus, and it's an excellent source of information on all health topics, including drugs, for patients. So another website put forth from the National Library of Medicine is called Drug Information Portal. And this website will provide you with information about current drugs. It's another resource you can use if you don't have access to the drug databases. So again, this is called Drug Information Portal. So what Drug Information Portal does is it provides you a link to all of those documents that are housed by the National Library of Medicine. So for example, I have summary information, I have drug information from Medline Plus Drugs, I have consumer health information from Medline Plus, I have drug-induced liver disease from Liver Tox, I have manufacturer's drug label from Daily Med, and I have clinical trials from clinicaltrials.gov. So all of those in the parentheses are databases that are run by the National Library of Medicine. You see, you also can get a detailed summary. You can get references from scientific journals from PubMed and Medline. You can get the full text biomedical articles from PubMed Central. You can get references from toxicological journals from ToxLine. And you can get biological activities and chemical structure from PubChem. And again, toxicological and chemical resources from ChemID+. So Drug Information Portal provides you with information that the National Library of Medicine publishes. So this is a good source to use if you are unable to use those drug databases that we are learning about in class, like FACS and Lexicomp and Micromedics. I would, of course, go to those first, and if I did not have access to them, I would then consider using Drug Information Portal. Pillbox is another website by the National Library of Medicine. It provides you with identification of medications. So this is what I would use if I didn't have access, again, to a drug database like Micromedics has Identidex or Lexicomp or FACS. So remember, Micromedics has a larger identification drug database. Lexicomp is limited in its identification to U.S. and Canadian products. So Pillbox is put forth by the National Library of Medicine, and you can put in markings of a pill or a tablet, and it will come back with what potentially that pill or tablet could be. So in this example, I just searched for those Mara tablets that have M32 on them. And if I had a patient coming in with a pink tablet that had M32 on it, I could be pretty certain this was a metoprolol 50 milligram oral tablet. So again, Pillbox will help identify medications by their markings. So another resource brought to us by the National Library of Medicine is AIDS Info. And AIDS Info offers access to the latest federally approved HIV/AIDS medical practice guidelines, HIV treatment and prevention clinical trials, and other research information for healthcare providers, researchers, and people affected by HIV and AIDS. So it is a nice source. It has everything in one place. So this project is 100% federally funded, meaning it is funded by the National Library of Medicine. There are no advertisements on this website, and it does not endorse any one product or any company. So if I had information I needed to look up specific to AIDS therapy, I would definitely consider going to AIDS Info. So this slide just gives you a snapshot of the clinical guidelines that are listed on AIDS Info, and you can see how they're organized by population. We have adult and adolescent HRV, adult and adolescent opportunistic infections, perinatal, pediatric ARV, pediatric opportunistic infections, caring for persons with HIV in disaster areas, pre-exposure prophylaxis, occupational post-exposure prophylaxis, non-occupational post-exposure prophylaxis, prevention with persons with HIV, laboratory testing, and hormonal contraception. So again, if I wanted information specific to AIDS therapy, I would definitely consider going to AIDS Info. ClinicalTrials.gov is another site I do use routinely, and this is a site that provides information about clinical trials. It's a registry and results database that is publicly and privately supported, and it was mandated that drug companies provide results of their clinical trials, and this was the avenue in which we took here in the States, that drug companies were supposed to put their results in here in clinicaltrials.gov, but you'll notice that not all of the records in here have results. But I do like to use this site. I recommend it highly for students, especially when they're doing journal clubs. It provides the information in an easy to read format, and I will go through that with you now. So let's just say I was looking for rizatriptan in the treatment of headaches or migraines. So as you can see, I just put in rizatriptan and I get records up, and each record is a clinical trial. Some of them have been completed and have results. Some are completed but don't have results. Some are recruiting, and then you can see one at the very top that was withdrawn. So if any of these interest me, I would click on that link. And I believe I'm clicking on number 2, a study to evaluate the safety and tolerability of rizatriptan for long-term treatment in acute migraine in children and adolescents. Once I click on the record, I have some options, and I can look at the tabular view study results. I recommend students look at the tabular view. This view provides you very easy to read tables. It often will help students later on in their evidence-based medicine courses with determining 2x2 tables. You can easily see the inclusion-exclusion criteria. And again, I highly recommend clinicaltrials.gov. You would know if a study is in here by the abstract has a NCT number, a National Clinical Trial number, and you can just input that trial number into this database and get up details regarding that study. So here's an example of one of those trials. As you can see here in clinicaltrials.gov under overall study participant flow. Easy to read tables. You can absolutely tell how many were there at the beginning through 606. How many completed the study? 427. That means 179 did not complete, and you can see the reasons why they did not complete. So again, if your study has an NCT number, I would highly recommend you look it up in clinicaltrials.gov. Another database brought to you by the National Library of Medicine is PubChemSubstance. I don't often find myself going here, but if you ever want to know a structure, molecular weight, pH, or any of the scientific data, you could go to PubChemSubstance and put in the chemical name or the substance, the chemical, and you can get the chemical information returned to you. LibriTox is another database brought to us by the National Library of Medicine, and it provides up-to-date, accurate, and easily accessed information on the diagnosis, cause, frequency, patterns, and management of liver injury attributable to prescription and non-prescription medications, herbs, and dietary supplements. It also includes a case registry that will enable scientific analysis and better characterization of clinical patterns of liver injury. Liver Talks website provides a comprehensive resource for physicians and their patients and for clinical academics and researchers who specialize in idiosyncratic drug-induced hepatotoxicity. So again, I would go to Liver Talks when I wanted more information about the liver damage that a particular drug can cause. So here's what a record looks like in Liver Talks. I did put in rizatriptan. I did not get anything because but I did get a document on serotonin receptor agonists, which are the triptans. And you can see I will have an overview, a case report, the product information, chemical formulas and structures, and other reference links. So this is, again, all specific to the type of liver damage that the triptans can cause. So if I was specifically interested in liver damage of a drug, I would definitely use Liver Talks to look up that information. The information provided is detailed. You have a nice potential mechanism of injury. You have also summaries from clinical trials and outcomes in management. So again, that is Liver Talks. ToxNet is a toxicology data network. It has several databases in it, but I would potentially use ToxNet if for some reason I couldn't get into Micromedics to look in Poisindex. I would go to the National Library of Medicine's ToxNet if I was interested in toxicology information. When I find myself going to, again, I prefer to use Micromedics and Poisindex, is to find out perhaps the maximum dose of a drug. It lists case reports of persons that overdose. I was recently asked to look up polyethylene glycol that is in lorazepam IV injection. So I wanted to take a look to see what kind of toxicity is reported with lorazepam IV injection. Again, because the lorazepam IV injection is used for alcohol withdrawal syndrome, and one of the excipients in lorazepam IV injection is polyethylene glycol, which can cause toxicity within itself. So I went to Poisindex. But I could also easily come into ToxNet to look up what type of toxicology is reported with IV lorazepam and specifically the polyethylene glycol component. So this slide is just showing you I did a little search on rizatriptan in ToxNet, and I get all their databases up. So you can see the first database is about ToxLine, so that's the toxicology database. The second one is DART, talking about rizatriptan during pregnancy. And the third one I don't really care for, it's aspartame. But then the fourth one is LactMed, and LactMed is another database I will use. It talks about breastfeeding and medications. And then the fifth one you see is the ChemID+. So let's take a look now at LactMed. LactMed is a great source. Again, I would go, if I could, to my gold standard Briggs, and if you remember correctly, Briggs is found in Facts and Comparisons and Lexicons. Briggs gives us great information on pregnancy and lactation data. But if I don't have access to those, I would definitely go to LactMed in the run by the National Library of Medicine. So LactMed has monographs about each of the drugs, and this one is rizatriptan. And as you can see, it gives you drug levels and effects, substance identification, and administration information. And we can see here for rizatriptan that there is no published data during breastfeeding with this drug. If rizatriptan is requested by the mother and the mother is not able to discontinue breastfeeding, an alternative drug may be preferred. So again, if I didn't have access to Briggs, I would definitely use LactMed to research information about drugs and their excretion into breast milk. So another great source that you can refer your patients to, and you can also use yourself, is goodrx.com. So GoodRx will provide drug cost in your area. You can even put in a zip code and you can get the closest pharmacies, and the cost of that particular drug in your area. So for our example here is Maxalt, the rizatriptan. You can see that it's available in the Denver area at Health Warehouse, $17.04. Actually, that's an online purchase. And then we can see that Albertsons and Safeway also has it for $17.63. And you can see under the Safeway, the estimated cash price is $382. So again, I really like GoodRx. It gives you a true life cost of drugs. They also do have coupons on it. And as you may recall, we have another drug cost source, and that's in Redbook, that's in Micromedics. However, in Redbook, all we have is the average wholesale price across the nation. I like to use GoodRx and refer my patients there to get local drug costs. So again, GoodRx will provide you the cost of drugs in any specific geographic location. So lastly, I just want to mention a few websites that you may find useful. Medscape. Medscape is, it has a wide variety of specialties. What I'm showing you on this screen is Medscape Pharmacist. You can sign up for free. You just create an account. And they have very interesting articles that are pertinent to pharmacists. So sometimes when clinical trials are first published, they're allowed to be published for free in other sites. So oftentimes I'll see a brand new clinical trial published in its entirety in Medscape, and that's because the publisher will allow the trial to be published for free for like 6 months, and then it pulls it back, and you can only get it if you go through your library source. So again, I do like Medscape Pharmacists for news and information for the latest in clinical trials, and just to keep me up to date in other areas rather than my specialty area. Many of you may also be familiar with Global RPH. Again, I prefer you to use those resources we have at the library. Facts and Comparisons, Lexicon, Up-to-Date, Dynamed, Micromedics. I don't want to see Global RPH as a reference in your drug questions. However, when you're out on practice, some people do use Global RPH. I particularly hear from colleagues that they like the calculators, but it's basically an internet site for clinicians, and it has lots of good tools and lists and conversions and calculations. So you may want to check out Global RPH. So as I mentioned, Global RPH has lots of good calculators, and here are some that are listed alphabetically. I don't even get them all on this one page. So again, Global RPH does list several calculators that you may have need of when you're in practice and you're no longer going to school and have access to the library. I know that Global RPH also has a opioid analgesic converter. So this is a great calculator in which you're converting from one opioid to another, and it will do it for you. So again, I just show you these because you may need to have access to them once you're out in practice and no longer going to school. So I belong to the American Academy of Colleges of Pharmacy, AACP, and one of the things the Drug Information PRN started was this farm guide, and these are drug information resources that are either totally free or partly free. And what I mean by partly free is that you would get access to some of that information without cost. So I left you the link here on this slide. If you want to go into the notes page, you'll see the link. And again, it's just a resources that may be interesting to you. Again, I show you a lot of these because when you're out in practice, you may want to look up some of this drug information but not have access to the drug databases that you do while you're in school. One of the last things I want to acquaint you with are the mobile apps. You have access to Up-to-Date as a mobile app, and Dynamed as a mobile app. Micromedics is a mobile app. I can't say I like it because you have to have 3 separate apps, one for the drug information, one for IV compatibilities, and one for drug interactions, and the password expires every 3 months. But take a look at your library website and go to the mobile apps guide. And on that page, you will get information on all the resources that you can, as a student here, have a mobile app for. So take a look and see if any of those interest you. I highly recommend you get Up to Date or Dynamed to put on your mobile device, and that will help you. Also, both of those sources have drug information, and I'm not positive, I'm pretty sure that you'll get that drug information also with the mobile app. So again, Up to Date uses Lexicomp, and Dynamed uses Micromedics for their drug information. So take a look here, download these resources while you can, and use them while you're a student here at the university. So this is a slide that just has the link for the mobile app information. And I forgot to mention also Clinical Key has a mobile app. So again, if your phone or your device has room for these, I highly recommend at least you put on one of these that you like and get accustomed to using. So in conclusion, know your website publisher. Evaluate these websites. Use your knowledge to assess whether that website has valid information. And don't forget about those tertiary resources available to you at the library. We are entering a new frontier for both our patients and pharmacists when it comes to obtaining and using health information. And it's vital that pharmacists be in the position to provide integral information to their patients to gain an understanding of their health. As traditional pharmacist roles change, new opportunities to get involved in managing patients' health care present themselves. A lot is at stake if pharmacists do not move forward with these roles. Someone else will step in. It has been the job of a pharmacist for decades to educate and provide patients with quality drug information. In the end, it's up to pharmacists to design this new role and demonstrate value to the patients so they can continue to be used as a key ally in healthcare. And part of doing this is to knowing your resource and to be able to effectively and efficiently answer drug information questions.